What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Kevin Svenson here. Just wanted to come to you with a video today discussing why I believe the next crypto bull market could actually be the biggest and strongest bull market we've seen yet. Now, of course, the percentage gains won't be the same, but in terms of the strength and the sturdiness of the industry itself, I think we could be in for one of the biggest and longest bull runs we've ever seen in the crypto market. And before you label this as just another clickbait video, let me just give me a second here to actually explain to you why I do believe this is the case and give you some examples as to why this might be the case. Back in this time period, most people had absolutely no idea that Bitcoin even existed. They had no idea what blockchain was. They had no idea of anything, right? And as the prices started to gain, the interest started to increase, demand started increasing, and people started to become a little bit more aware. As we started breaking out, hitting higher high after higher high after higher high, the awareness and interest in cryptocurrencies started to peak, right? You saw Bitcoin being featured on all kinds of shows and all kinds of people talking about it. And when Bitcoin hit $20,000, we were basically at critical mass for that time period. And a lot of people around the world became aware of Bitcoin. Now, the interesting thing though, crypto was obviously a bubble during this time period, clearly, right? People had no idea. Again, people were just finding out about what Bitcoin was. They had no idea what it was, yet they were buying into it because they saw the prices going up and they were told that it was the next greatest thing. So they figure that if they bought it now, maybe they'll become a millionaire or something, right? So, that's the definition of a bubble. People buying into something for the sole purpose of trying to get a return on their money. And the thing about the last bull market here was that most people weren't really sure about how to obtain the cryptos that they wanted, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever they were buying, Litecoin. They didn't really know what to do. They were hearing about all this stuff, but there was no clear path, on-ramp, essentially, for them to get into the industry. And over time, people slowly started to figure out how they could get a hold of it. Of course, the Coinbase app hit record downloads. It was like the #1 app at one point. So one point I want to make is, unlike this time period right here, the public is now actually aware of how to get a hold of crypto, and they're more aware in terms of how to obtain it and what its uses can actually be. So that is one key thing we need to remember, is that unlike the last bull market, the general public now knows how to obtain this, and they're pretty aware for the most part of kind of what Bitcoin is. They don't know the details, that's for sure, but they're aware that it exists now. Unlike back then, when Bitcoin was coming up, people were just starting to catch on. But now the general public does know about Bitcoin. Most of the general public sees it as a scam right now, but think that will most likely change in the future. And also, not only does the public have their own on-ramps, the institutions now have their own on-ramps that are being created for them, right? There's a lot of good things going for the industry right now, guys. The awareness is there, and people understand how they can get involved now. There's Bitcoin ATMs popping up everywhere, and institutions also, if they don't have a way to obtain it now, they will very soon, with things like Backed being created and all kinds of on-ramps that institutions can use to get involved in the market. So that was the first portion of kind of what I wanted to discuss, was that, the awareness is there now. People kind of understand what Bitcoin is, or at least that it exists now. They at least know that Bitcoin exists now, unlike before. And people know at this point, for the most part, if they don't know, somebody they know knows how to obtain Bitcoin or any other crypto that they want, right? I feel like we're at the point where not everybody knows how to get a hold of crypto, but everybody knows somebody who knows, right? And that is not where we were before, but we are there now. So the rate of adoption will be able to increase much faster in the next upcycle, if you take all those things into account. So the next point I want to bring up now is how Bitcoin is being developed, right? The Bitcoin core developers are pretty stubborn about making changes, which is actually, I think, a good thing. But there's a lot of layers, second layer solutions, and side chain, potentially side chains being created for Bitcoin, above and beside Bitcoin, essentially. Things like Lightning Network. So if you guys, most of you out there probably already know what Lightning Network is. Some of you might already know how it works. If I can explain it as simply as I can, essentially what it is a payment channel that you can use to transact as many times as you would like to, or as many times as you have designated in that channel. And you can transact in an instant with Bitcoin, right? But all the transactions that are taking place aren't recorded on the blockchain until the channel is closed. And once the channel is closed, all of the things that took place within that channel are then recorded on the blockchain. So essentially what that allows is for very fast transactions, and you can make many transactions. You can do all kinds of things. For example, you could actually pay people, like let's say you're running a company. You could actually pay your employees for every second that they are working instead of paying them every 2 weeks. And as a worker, as an employee, that might be something that you would enjoy, right? The fees are very minimal, and you can do tons of transactions for very, very small fee, almost no fee. And it can be and it's all basically instant. So that idea, right? Think about that. And now take it even further into the future, where we have machine-to-machine transactions and how Bitcoin can actually be used in that way with second layer solutions such as Lightning Network, right? You can have mass adoption now with solutions like Lightning Network. That is just one example of how Bitcoin is being made even better, and how mass adoption is actually going to be able to take place in the actual core makeup of Bitcoin, the slow transactions and stuff, why that actually doesn't really affect things, and why second layer solutions and side chains will actually solve a lot of problems, and mass adoption can actually take place. And that's one thing I mentioned in my video called The Future of Crypto, Think Bigger, where I was saying that in a decade or two, Bitcoin is going to be unrecognizable. There's going to be so many layers and so many side chains that can be used with Bitcoin that it might not even be recognized, and we might not even look at it as Bitcoin anymore. Although Bitcoin itself, the core Bitcoin blockchain, will always be there, but you will, as a user, will have the options to use all these different layers and side chains and stuff if you so choose, or you can just use the core Bitcoin blockchain. The last point I want to make is that cryptocurrencies are hard money, right? They are programmed to be a certain way, and they stay that way, right? Unlike fiat currencies, you cannot print more Bitcoin. Of course, you can always fork it, but that's not really a way to do things, and that's not going to, forking Bitcoin does not create value. Value is created within the community itself, which blockchain is trusted by the community. So this last point is a pretty key point, because the fact that cryptocurrencies are hard money is actually going to challenge the Federal Reserve and central banks around the world. The fact that you can't print more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is trusted and mutable, and that people know this, and people realize that Bitcoin is actually, in many ways, more legitimate than fiat currencies. At least from my perspective. That's all up to the the person who. It's all very subjective, but in my opinion, Bitcoin is actually a much more legitimate form of currency than fiat currencies, because it cannot be manipulated in terms of the supply and the actual function of the currency. Yeah, the price, that's a whole different story, guys. The price has nothing to do with the actual fundamentals here. And because of all these things, Bitcoin will actually keep central banks in check, because what's going to happen is Bitcoin is going to exist. And if the central banks screw up, people know that they can just go to Bitcoin. So this is why banks are so worried about Bitcoin, because people actually now do have a fallback. They actually can fall back on something and that will actually work. And central banks now have to really, really make sure they don't screw up, because then people will leave their system and they will lose power and control. And that, I think, is the biggest threat, and one of the best points I can make as to why Bitcoin is most likely going to be very successful, is because it is now a financial instrument and financial tool, a monetary innovation that is going to keep the bankers in check, and it's basically going to show them, hey, you can't screw up, because if you do, we have another option over here, so you better do this right. And I think that is really the best part about all of this. And just going back on all the things I was saying, the awareness, right? The public is now aware. There's on-ramps for retail investors and soon institutions. People know how to obtain the crypto now, and if they don't, they know somebody who does. We're going to have all sorts of layers and side chains that will make mass adoption very, very practical and possible and plausible going into the future here. And the last point, that crypto is hard money, and the central banks better watch out. You better do the right thing, because we have another option now. And those three main points there, I think, are the reason why the next crypto cycle, the next bull cycle, could and may very well be bigger than any cycle we've seen yet. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about everything here, whether you agree, disagree, have any other comments. Let me know in the comments below. Hit that notification bell, and I will see you all in the next video. And one last thing I want to mention is that recently I've been getting a lot of comments, people telling me that I'm too bullish for thinking that we are close to the bottom. A lot of people in my comment section now saying, hey, you're too bullish right now. We're going so much lower. We're going to go under 1,000, like, all this kind of stuff. And I just want to let you guys know that I am now seeing similarities, inverse similarities from when I made my first few videos, when I was predicting, $2,500 Bitcoin bottom back in February. People telling me that I was super bearish all year long, saying that I was crazy. I was way too bearish on the market. We're never going to hit those prices. And now I'm seeing the exact opposite comments, people telling me that I'm too bullish, right? So these are the clues that I always look out for. Just want to let you guys know that this is happening now in my comment section on some videos. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.